Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to call to order this August 8, 2013 Tennessee Alarm Systems Contractors Teleconference Board meeting. Ms. Bass, will you please call the roll?
Keith Harvey?
Here.
Vivian Hickson?
Here.
Karen Jones?
Here.
Mackenzie Roberts?
Here.
Stephen Tucker?
Here.
Madam Chair, you do have a quorum.
Okay, can we get a motion and a second from the board members to review and adopt the agenda for today's meeting?
Ken Roberts, so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken Roberts, and we have a second by Karen Jones to adopt today's agenda as presented. All in favor, voice by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. So the agenda is set for today. And the next agenda item on the agenda says determination.
Madam Chair, this is Michael Driver. You'll excuse me. When you were doing a meeting through electronic means, all votes have to be by roll call vote. I apologize for the inconvenience.
Okay. Ms. Bass, will you please do the roll call vote, please, for this motion?
Keith Harvey?
Aye.
Vivian Hickson?
Aye.
Karen Jones?
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts?
Aye.
Stephen Tucker?
Aye.
Oh, ayes have it.
Okay. Now, the next thing on the agenda is determination of necessity under Tennessee Code Annotated 8-44-108. Does someone up there wish to explain this to the board?
Yes, we're going to turn
Josh
this over.
Kilgore, Board Attorney. I'll be handling this. For the record, this meeting is being conducted as a necessity as defined in Tennessee Code Annotated Section 844-108A3. The matters to be considered are the temporary qualifying agent examination procedures and getting final authorization from the board to proceed. There is a necessity for the board to consider finalizing exam procedures as the exam is scheduled to be administered on August 22nd and 23rd, 2013. This board has never proctored an exam like this previously, and final details need clarification before it is administered. The matter to be considered requires timely action by the board. The physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary.
Okay. So Mr. Kilgore has explained to the board the need for this type of meeting to be held and the purpose for this meeting. And the purpose is to determine the procedures for this temporary qualifying agent testing procedure. Is this correct?
Yes.
Do we need a motion for that determination?
I think that would be best. This is Michael Driver.
All right, we're going to have a roll call. Keith Harvey?
Motion for
Okay, excuse me. Make the motion first, please.
I make a motion that we have a determination of necessity under Tennessee Code Annotated 8-44-108. Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept determination of necessity under Tennessee Code Annotated 8-44-108. Ms. Bass, will you please do the roll call voting?
Keith Harvey?
Aye.
Vivian Hickson?
Aye.
Karen Jones?
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts, excuse me.
Aye.
Stephen Tucker?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, then the next item is the determination of temporary examination procedures. I believe we have an additional document that was sent out today regarding this. Does everybody have it available to them, the alarm board teleconference for examination August 8th, 2013? Yes. I think it was sent earlier today by Beth in an email.
It's Ken. I received it.
Okay, do you have it in front of you that you can refer to?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was making sure before we move into that, that everybody has it available for review.
about the other board members? Do you have that also?
Yes, we do.
Yes,
Oh, I think we can proceed then. I've been asked to request the board to vote on the following procedures. Part 1 of the examination is on the laws and rules, and there must be a passing score of 70.
How many questions will there be, Cody?
There's 30 questions. On the written portion, there's 30.
Have 21 to pass.
Okay.
I just asked. I didn't know
That's
how many
okay.
will be.
I need to take we're going to vote on one at a time here, so I'll need to do a roll call vote, please. I'm asking if this is all right with the board, if we do go ahead and have the first part of the exam on the laws and rules with a passing score of 70.
Make a motion to do so. Keith Harvey. I second it. Steve Tucker.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to vote on Part 1 of the exam on the laws and rules section with a passing score of 70%. Ms. Best, please do the roll call vote.
Keith Harvey,
Aye.
Vivian Hickson,
Aye.
Karen Jones,
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts,
Aye.
Stephen Tucker.
Here. Yeah. Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, now Part 2 is on the oral with a passing score of 70. There'll be seven questions must be answered correctly. 7 out of 10. There are going to be 10 questions on the oral part.
And it was also my understanding that they would have to pass Part 1, the rules and regulations portion, before they would be eligible to move on to Part 2.
That's something I believe the board need to vote on.
I think we voted that on.
We already voted that on the, okay, if we voted on that at the board meeting, yes, so that's the way that, so what we're saying is that you're going to take the first part of the exam, which is on the laws and the rules. If you do not pass that portion, you do not go to the second portion, well, which
That's
is the
correct.
oral. Is that correct?
That is
Correct.
correct.
All right. Thank you. The next, we already had the motion, didn't we? We just said we did that. Okay, move on to the next one is to please to allow the board staff to select.
No, wait a minute. We haven't voted.
No, we didn't vote on Part 2. The question
Okay.
came up about if they failed Part 1, if they would proceed to Part 2. We never did vote on the Part 2.
I'm just trying to speed that up. I apologize.
Okay, that's okay.
So let's just take a vote on that, if you would, please, Madam Chair.
I think, didn't we not have a motion and a second and that we needed to vote?
Okay, going to do a roll call vote on that.
They don't have
Keith,
a motion, do they?
Yeah, we
Okay,
don't-
I'll make a motion. This is Karen, that we adopt that they pass the Part 1 before they can move on to Part 2.
We've already done that.
We've already done that in the board meeting.
I thought they just stopped us and said we hadn't.
We need the motion on Part 2 of the oral exam. Right.
right. 10 questions, 7 going up with the passing score of 70.
Excuse me. Okay.
All right. Going to do a roll call vote on that. That's going to be Keith Harvey.
I'm sorry. Do we have a motion for that yet?
I thought we did, but I may be mistaken. I thought we had.
Okay, Madam Chair, if you would you make we're going to request that a motion be made.
Okay. We need so someone make a motion on Part 2, which is the oral section of the exam with a passing score of 70, which means 7 questions out of 10 must be answered correctly. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts. Do we have a second?
Second, Keith Harvey.
We have a second by Mr. Harvey. All in favor, voice. I'm sorry, Ms. Beth. Please do your roll call vote on this.
All right, thank you. Keith Harvey.
Aye.
Vivian Hickson.
Aye.
Karen Jones.
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts.
Aye.
Stephen Tucker.
Aye.
The ayes have it, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right, we can move down to the next one, which is to allow the board staff to select 10 questions from questions that have been provided from the board for the oral interview, which would be 10 questions per classification.
Okay, now this is one where I had voiced some reservations about this, if I may speak. I feel like the examiners, whoever they are for the particular examination, should be the one that would select the questions. Now, the reason I say that is the questions I expect would be very technical in nature, and the examiners would be better qualified to select the questions rather than staff.
Oh, just a moment, sir. Let me confer with your staff attorney.
Didn't we talk about that in the last board meeting about the board getting together and reviewing the questions?
I think this is Michael Driver. The difficulty with the board getting together and reviewing the questions is that meeting may well be an open meeting for the purposes of the Sunshine Law and would potentially invalidate the exam after having discussed all of the questions that the board is going to consider in an open meeting that could be attended and very well might be attended by everyone taking that examination.
Well, that makes sense. However, the examiners could be provided the questions in each category, and then the examiners could select from those the questions that they felt most appropriate to be used.
Would each candidate be asked the same question?
Could be, if you feel like that's important, or they could be asked questions from the. I would probably suggest that the questions might be varied from candidate to candidate, just as the questions now are changed for examination to examination and candidate to candidate.
If I may ask, how many questions were submitted by board members for you to choose from?
I don't have those questions with me right now because they are under lock and key, but we had several board members send the information in.
I mean, approximately.
Okay, give me just a second. There's approximately, I'm going to say approximately 30.
In each category.
I didn't break it down per category. I've just got the sheets where the board members sent the questions in with the answers.
And you got about 30 questions?
Roughly, yes, ma'am.
Well, I sent 25 questions in yesterday or the day before.
Yes.
On the closed circuit TV category.
I just sent 15, and that was lump sum. I sent 5 in 3 categories.
Mr. Tucker, did you send any questions in?
Hello?
Mr. Tucker?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Mr. Harvey, did you send any in?
I haven't sent them yet. I have a list of about 10 to send.
Okay.
Well, my point is this. I think that the examiners should be the ones to select the questions to be used in the examination. The idea of having 10 questions with, we've already decided to be 10 questions and 7 answered correctly. My point is I feel like the examiners would be technically qualified to select from the list of questions the ones they feel most appropriate to be asked. And I'm concerned that staff does not have that technical expertise. And that's not to be critical of staff, it's just that's not their function.
That's true. I think since we're choosing from questions that were submitted by board members, that would kind of take staff out of, necessarily choosing the technical questions. I mean, assuming that they were, all the questions that were submitted are sufficient, supposedly, to the board members. The reason that we're proposing this today is just for, after considering all of the logistical issues with administering the exam and trying to prevent the board from having as little, or to make sure that the board has as little liability as possible. And that's really where we have all discussed it and come up with what we're proposing today. I'm not sure how many questions that you would feel comfortable with if we gave you a pool of questions from the ones that you submitted. How many per category do you think that you would need to sufficiently choose 10 per classification?
Well, you just use the ones that have been submitted.
You just have in front of you, Ken, are you saying that we'd have in front of us the whole, just a list of questions that everyone had submitted in that category that we were testing from, asking questions from?
Right.
And let's say if they chose me and you to do fire and monitoring, we would have all those questions in front of us, and we could randomly pick 10 for each candidate. That way every candidate wouldn't have the same questions, and they couldn't go out the door and pass along those questions or whatever.
Right.
I see what you're saying now.
Excuse me, this is Michael Driver. I do not think that there's necessarily anything wrong with doing that way. I will say there's a certain risk to not having all of the applicants have the same questions. That said, as you noted, that is done on other tests, which are based off of item banks that are used to develop the test. I would think it's more advisable to have all of the applicants in the same category be asked the same questions. There's the additional difficulty of how you go about choosing the questions, given that there are two people in the room, and any discussion as to which questions are going to be chosen for the applicant are, again, subject to the open meetings law and would have to be discussed under that capacity.
Well, all right. Let me ask a counter to that. If we've got two people conducting an examination, that would constitute a meeting that would be open to sunshine law also, would it not be?
Yes.
So what we're saying, in effect, with the answer to that is that each examination is subject to public scrutiny under the sunshine law.
That's correct.
And if we were to ask each applicant the same question, then the subsequent applicants could sit in on the previous exam and hear the questions and the answers. Somehow that doesn't seem logical to me.
Well, okay.
I'm not sure logistically how that would work. I mean, Michael, do you think that we could keep potential applicants who are applying that day out of the room while the oral examination was being conducted?
Well, and that's something right now I don't have the answer to yet. We're aware of that problem. It's something we're looking into. The Sunshine Law, the Public Meetings Act, goes very far in favor of public notice and disclosure of meetings, and that's something, again, that we are aware of and we're looking into. I do not have the answer to it today. I understand it's a concern. It's one that we saw, but it's a tricky question and one that, again, I do not have an absolute answer to right now.
Let me suggest this. Let me suggest that we skip that particular point and that we move on to the other questions and then come back to the question about or come back to the issue of the questions. If we could go ahead and have a vote for two board members to be present at the oral interviews, I think that's an excellent suggestion and would make a motion to that effect if the chair would entertain that.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts to vote to have 2 board members present for the oral interview. Do we have a second?
Second, Keith Harvey. With discussion, did we discuss at the last meeting that we were going to do our best to do it in front of the entire board?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That was my understanding. This is Karen.
Did that not work out logistically, or are we just...
No, sir, if you look on the sheet, this is Cody Vest, if you look on the sheet, it said that we were going to, instead of having it before the full board was going to have 2 board members, Ken Roberts, Karen Jones for the fire and monitoring, Keith Harvey and Steve Tucker to give the Bergen CCTV, because if there's any disputes on the results, we would then take it before the individual would go before the full board.
See,
Okay.
that way you'd have the full board available for any sort of appeal.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense.
Hope that clarified that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Harvey to vote to have 2 board members present during the oral interview process for each candidate. Ms. Best, please do a roll call vote, please.
Keith Harvey,
Aye.
Vivian Hickson,
Aye.
Karen Jones,
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts,
Aye.
Stephen Tucker.
Aye.
The ayes have it, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And let me go back to the other question. We're correct. We do have other rooms set up, 2 other rooms set up for candidates. We have 1 room set up for everyone to take the written exam. Then we're going to divide out into the 2 rooms for the fire and monitoring, 1 room, Bergen CCTV in the other room, and then we do have another room for the candidates to wait in.
That sounds great.
Will the candidates be unattended, or will there be someone in there to just, I don't know.
No, I've got all my staff on standby, Ms. Jones,
Yeah.
to assist us with this on August the 22nd.
Okay. I just wondered if there would be any, not to babysit them, so to speak, but I mean, would there be anyone in there to be with them?
Yes, we'll be in there to say hello and make sure they're comfortable.
Okay, that's not what I mean, but I'll take that.
This is Michael Driver again, and something, and I don't know what Ms. Best's opinion or what the board's opinion on the matter is, but something, I know the board's already adopted a motion to have 2 board members conduct each examination, and a lot of the intricacies and the difficulties the board is facing, and especially since anyone that doesn't pass the oral exam is going to appear before the full board anyway, that if the oral examination is conducted with a single board member, that would obviate a lot of the problems that the questions were being asked about, I think. I don't know what the board's position is on that, but it may be something worth considering, since with a single board member in there, we could ensure the confidentiality of each oral examination, and then those that have a reason to contest their score on the oral examination would then be able to appear before the full board.
So you're recommending doing a 1-on-1 interview instead of a 2-on-1 interview?
Well, and you know, the board makes the determination. I think that would get around many of the issues that the board's currently having regarding the discussions between the board members as to which questions they're going to select. I understand the board members, if there are 2 board members in the room, as well as taking care of the issue as to whether or not people can sit in the oral examinations in their individual capacity.
Well, there's going to be some questions that are asked. Some of the questions that we reviewed that Ken had put in, and I know some of the ones that I sent in, won't be just a single one-word answer. And it may take another board member to explain to the board member that asked the question how they're answering it. Like, I think it's just one-on-one. If the board member didn't understand exactly how the person was answering it, there might be another way to skin that cat, so to speak. I mean, if one board member is not understanding what the candidate is saying, and the other one does, they're saying, yeah, they're answering it correctly because look, this is what they're saying, and it can be done that way. You know, some of the questions that we're sent in already, and I know some of the ones that I've been in for an oral interview are going to be hard to answer with one word.
So, Ms. Jones, I think you're in... All right.
What?
Oh, so I think what you're saying is you're in favor of to having 2 board members.
I think it would be better. I'd like to hear the rest of the board's comment on it, what they think. If it wouldn't be better to have 2 people examining their answer instead of just one.
All right, do we have any other comments on that?
Well, we just voted to have 2. Now, we could certainly reverse that if council feels like that would be the best way to handle it.
Then we'd have to resubmit some of our questions and make all the questions just a one-word answer, and if you don't hit that one word, then you're not going to get the question right. That's going to be hard to do in an oral, I think.
One problem we're running into also, this is Josh, that we're running into a time constraint issue, even though we are spreading it out over 2 days. You know, we said approximately 20 minutes per interview, and so I guess I was thinking along the lines of if the answers are one word or one sentence type answers, that it would be about, if you did 10 questions, that would be about 2 minutes per question in an effort to keep within the 20-minute time constraint that the board had mentioned at the last meeting.
I think the way council has presented it is they took the time consideration factor in that, and I think the way we've already voted is the best way to handle it. But I'm just 1 out of 5, so I think the way we've already voted is the proper way to handle it, so someone else makes the comment.
So the vote right now is to have 2 board members give the oral exam.
Correct. Now, I think that's the best way, but I said I'm just only 1 of 5.
I like the idea of having 2 board members present during an oral, for several reasons. But I could do it either way. But I like the idea of how we have it with 2.
I certainly see the advantages that Mr. Driver, was pointing out, and I wish I had thought about this sooner. But that would also cut down on our time constraints and give us a little bit more flexibility if you were doing 4 separate rooms where each board member would be conducting 4 interviews at a time instead of only 2 interviews at a time. And it was also get around some of the problems that we're having with the Sunshine Law and the Open Meetings Act.
Well, isn't there some provisions in the Open Meetings Act to allow for confidentiality and maybe even a privacy issue with the person being examined? Surely there's some provisions for that.
This is Michael Driver. That's something we can do research into. I am not aware of any provision that would be applicable to this situation. Again, I think the difficulties in performing an examination that is open to the public, even potentially open to the public, opens the examination process up to a greater degree of susceptibility to a challenge. I understand the board's desire to have 2 board members present, and I believe that was in part based on some discussions in the last meeting among the board members during that meeting that you were more comfortable having 2 members in each meeting, and I understand why that's a good idea, but that's also in part what the appearance at the end in front of the quorum of the board is there to protect against, that if an individual has a question, says, well, no, I believe that the answer I gave was sufficient, that you won't just have two people sitting there, you will have quorum of the board sitting there who can address that concern, and it also addresses, I think, the logistical issues we're having regarding the openness of the examination process and the potential susceptibility to a challenge that I think that potentially opens the board up to.
Violation of the Open Meeting Act, then?
No, that potentially the examination process, I mean, we discussed many of the pitfalls, is, I think, more susceptible to a challenge if you make each of those examinations an open meeting, because of the difficulties we have maintaining or ensuring that later applicants don't have access to all or part of the test pool, the question selection process that the board's already discussed, and this way, if each person appears in front of a single board member, that board member receives the pool of questions that have been provided to Ms. Best by the board, selects 10 questions from that list in each classification that they are testing that applicant in, and each applicant, as has already been approved by the board, passes 70% of the questions in each classification. I think that would fix many of the problems that I think that we're having to discuss about the current procedure.
Okay. Madam Chairman, let me make a motion then that we rescind our previous vote, whereby we would have two board members present for the oral interview, and change that to, and with that rescission, have it so that we would have a single board member conducting each oral interview.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts to rescind the previous motion that required two board members to sit before each candidate, and he makes a motion now that we have only one-on-one. Is that correct, Mr. Roberts?
Yes, that would be correct. And I would be privileged to make that motion because I voted in favor of the previous motion.
I'll second that. Keith Harvey.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Harvey to rescind the previous motion in favor of a one-on-one instead of a two-on-one oral interview process. Ms. Best, would you please do a roll call vote, please?
Harvey?
Aye.
Vivian Hickson?
Aye.
Karen Jones?
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts?
Aye.
Stephen Tucker?
Aye.
The ayes have it, Madam Chair.
Okay, so the board understands this is now a one-on-one and not a two-on-one oral interview in order to expedite the process of the open meetings law, correct?
Right.
Okay. Now, what else do we need to discuss?
Well, now let's go back to the way in which the questions would be selected, if I may speak.
Sure.
I feel like that the interviewer should be given the list of questions that have been submitted by for the examination, and then the examiner would pick 10 questions from that block of questions submitted in order to use during the oral interview.
Okay.
I guess I need to put that in the form of a motion. I would make a motion then that the block of questions that have been submitted for the examination process be given, the entire block be given to the interviewer or the examiner, and they then would select which 10 questions they felt would be most appropriate for the interview or examination.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts to give the interviewer the entire list of potential questions and let that interviewer determine which 10 questions he or she will ask the candidate. Do we have a second to this motion?
Second with discussion.
Okay.
I'm just thinking out loud here. We changed our former motion because that was our guidance, our council's guidance is to do that, but now we're doing just the opposite of what they're recommending.
Yeah.
I think, I'm sorry, this is Michael Driver. I didn't mean to interrupt. I think much of that guidance was based off of the procedure previously adopted by the board as to having the 2 examiners in a room. I think that with the single examiner system, if what the board would like to do is have access to the pool of questions and select 10 questions in each classification in which a licensee is being, or applicant, is being examined, then I think that would be fine.
Okay.
You do not see a conflict, Mr. Driver, that the one-on-one process would allow the questioner to have all the questions and select 10 from that list that they have all come from board members. Is this what you're stating?
That is what I'm saying.
Okay. All right, we have a motion, and we have a second. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Harvey. Is there any more discussion on this? Okay, Ms. Bess, will you please do a roll call vote?
Harvey?
Aye.
Vivian Hickson?
Aye.
Karen Jones?
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts?
Aye.
Stephen Tucker?
Aye.
Ayes have it, Madam Chair.
Okay. So the board understands that we're back to a one-on-one, and the questioner will have access to all the questions submitted by the board members, correct? Okay. What next do we need to discuss?
Okay, yes, can you wait just a second here? Let's see, we have, let me see if I get this right. Ken, you're in monitor and fire?
I'm and actually qualified in all 4 categories.
Okay. How about Keith Harvey?
I'm qualified in all 4.
All 4. All right, how about Karen Jones?
Berg and fire.
Berg and fire. All right. Steve
I'm more
Tucker?
comfortable with Berg.
Berg.
Hold just a second. Ms. Jones, you were saying you were more comfortable?
With Berg.
All right.
I'm more familiar with that than I am the fire.
That's
I
fine.
have both.
How about Mr. Tucker?
Qualified in Berg, but I've worked in all 4 areas.
I need to know what your classification is on your license.
I said Berg.
You're Berg. So I only have Mr. Roberts and Mr. Harvey in fire.
Well, I'm in fire also.
You're not comfortable with that. You want to do Berg.
If I was going to do one-on-one,
Okay.
yeah, I would feel more comfortable with saying that's a right or the wrong answer.
I think we can figure that out. Well, I did have a couple other things, and one thing I'd like for you to vote on is not to be taking any material into the exam room.
For the candidates not to take anything?
Correct.
Okay. We have a motion from the board to disallow any written materials in the testing room.
I would make such a motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Harvey. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Harvey and a second by Mr. Roberts to disallow any written materials in the testing rooms. All in favor? I'm sorry, Ms. Bess. Please do roll call votes.
Keith Harvey?
Aye.
Vivian Hickson?
Aye.
Karen Jones?
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts?
Aye.
Stephen Tucker?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it, Madam Chair. Another thing that I do have is to prohibit any electronic devices to be used during the examinations.
Okay. Any discussion, or do we have a motion to prohibit these?
So move.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to prohibit any electronic devices from being used in conjunction with this test. Ms. Best, please call the roll.
Keith Harvey,
Aye.
Vivian Hickson,
Aye.
Karen Jones,
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts,
Aye.
Stephen Tucker.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it, Madam Chair. And
Thank
wait,
you.
and hold on just a second.
Okay.
I think we already voted on that.
Is the board, just for my clarification, have they already voted on the disputed results on the oral portion that all board members will meet and allow the candidate to appear before them at the
No,
end of
we
each
haven't.
day?
We haven't
Nope.
voted on that yet.
No, we haven't. And,
Okay.
And that's something we should do.
Yeah, it's next on the agenda.
Madam Chairman, I'd make a motion that any appeals of the decision by the of the examinations be presented to the whole board, or be presented to a quorum of the board members.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts regarding the appeals process, that if a candidate was to appeal the decision by the one-on-one interview, that this would be heard by a quorum of the board. Do we have a second?
Second, Keith Harvey.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Harvey. All in favor, voice by saying aye.
Aye.
You do a roll call, Madam Chair.
Roll call. Sorry. It says
All right, thank you. Keith Harvey,
Aye.
Vivian Hickson,
aye.
Karen Jones,
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts,
Aye.
Stephen Tucker.
Aye.
The ayes have it, Madam Chair.
Okay, we've got that matter taken care of.
All right. Okay. Hold on just a second. Let me confer with council and see if we have any other discussion.
Hey, this is Josh again. If I may, just for the record, I'd like to get authorization from the board to allow Cody and board staff to, when they're dividing up and assigning which examinees and which categories, I just want to get on the record and have the board authorize them to do this. We have Mr. Roberts, and he is qualified to do fire monitoring, CCTV, and Berg. We have Mr. Harvey with fire monitoring, CCTV, and Berg. And we have Ms. Jones, and she has stated that she feels more comfortable doing Berg. And we have Mr. Tucker, who has certification in Berg. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
Only clarification of mine, Keith Harvey's, is I am not in a monitoring classification on my license.
Okay. I'll note that.
And I do have fire on my license. This is Miss Jones.
You're just more comfortable than the other. We'll see.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
By far, I'm just saying I have that.
All right. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I would make a motion that the staff assign the particular examination or the particular candidates for examination to the particular board members as they deem appropriate. And that's going to let them, in turn, balance. We'll probably have more applicants in the in the Berg category than you're going to have in monitoring, for example. And so my motion is to let staff balance the examiners among the, let me back up. My motion would be to let the staff balance the examinees among the available board members for examination purposes.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts to allow the staff to assign the different classifications of questioning to the various board members as they see fit. Do we have a second for this motion?
Second,
second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Roberts, a second by Mr. Harvey. Ms. Best, please do a roll call vote.
Keith Harvey,
Aye.
Vivian Hickson,
Aye.
Karen Jones,
Aye.
Mackenzie Roberts,
Aye.
Stephen Tucker.
Aye.
Ayes have it, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Now, let me just make sure I understand. I'm going to prepare these questions in these different categories. They will not be given to the board members until they're ready for the exam. Is that what we understand?
That's my understanding.
That one that you come in for the exam is when you be first given these.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
All I had. I just wanted to make sure.
I have a question about the, you have so many applicants that you stated that you already have signed up for these 2 dates, the 22nd and the 23rd. What are you going to do with the other applications that you have coming in or that will be coming in or that are left over?
Well, we have a 2 days we have a 2-day exam. We're going to try to get in as many as we can on our cutoff date.
Yes. And then after the cutoff date, you'll be doing what with those people?
They will need to wait until the exam is administered by the test institute that's going to be doing it.
Well,
So this will be the only time that we will use this particular procedure for the QA testing. Is this what you're saying, Cody?
We're going to try our best to make sure this is the only time that this is going to be done.
let's hope it's the only time it's needed to be done.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what's going to happen to other people that apply for a different category on their license. How long will they have to wait to get take a test?
And this is Michael Driver, and right now we hope that it would be unnecessary to use this procedure again. Should it be necessary, the board has done a lot of great work in getting the procedure in place and how it's going to go. Should it be necessary in the future, the board has this procedure in place. We are hopeful that those who were not able to use this examination process will be able to get the examination through a vendor without any undue delay.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Thank you.
That's encouraging.
Yes.
I believe that's all we have, Madam Chair.
Let me ask a question, if I may. I have some concern from our previous meeting. We indicated that we want to videotape the interviews. Is that still intended? If that's the case, with the possibility of 4 interviewers, then that means 4 video setups. Is that feasible? Do we really need to do that?
It is.
Well, we did the video. I recommended the video monitoring to keep down any, especially since y'all have gone back to the one-on-one interview process for protection of the board members.
And this is Michael Driver. It is my understanding from the information that I have received that will not present any undue difficulty in getting the 4 video devices set up and available for those dates.
Okay.
Okay.
Are those video recordings subject to public access? And we feel like we've avoided the open meetings issue, but are those videotapes then subject to the public requesting a copy of them for some reason?
They would be open records that would be subject to the Open Records Act. I would be my initial opinion on that matter. Yes, if someone were to make an open records request for them.
So that's going to open those particular questions that were asked up to potential public access.
That's correct.
Well, if they're only going to do this one time, I don't know that it's going to be an issue. If this is the only time we're going to use the process. Previously we had thought we were going to have to do maybe 2 more of these, since it's most unlikely that the test will be implemented before February or thereabouts of next year, that this would be the first of several of these testings. But, that would be my concern if we were going to do subsequent testings.
Well, also we'll be drawing from a pool of questions, so then you're not going to have necessarily all of the questions disclosed through the interview process. I guess possibly, maybe that would mitigate that particular situation.
I do think, again, this is Michael Driver, that operating from a pool of questions likely assist in that matter. If someone were to watch the examinations, they would only receive a subset of all of the available examinations, and there, should this process be necessary in the future, the board could consider how it wants to proceed regarding the development of additional questions at that time. However, I think that the procedure that the board has developed at the previous meeting and here today, does a good job of protecting the validity of the test for the examinees who are going to be appearing at this particular examination, and I think that is for, at this moment, the thing that has been concentrated on in developing this procedure.
That makes sense.
I have one more question, if I may. At the when we arrive on the 22nd, and when the 4 individuals are handed the questions, would there be a way that we could at least talk amongst ourselves and be coached, I guess, so to speak, that we're all asking the questions in the same manner, that we're not going to be offering 2 different, I don't know, in the way that we present the oral interview, do we all do it the same way? Will we all be able to sit down and say, listen, this is how we're going to do it?
I think if you were going to do that, it would need to be an open meeting. You can discuss that today if you like. That is part of the oral examination process, which is, I think, what we're here to discuss today, and I don't know if the board feels, how the board feels on developing a procedure for that.
Okay. I mean, if I were an applicant, I would want to be treated the same way in every room. And that's what I was asking. Are we going to have a certain way that we ask the questions, or will there be? I don't know. I was just creating fairness, I guess.
This is Cody Vest. I think what we actually need to bear in mind is that you're going to be given the questions. You'll be going into the room with the candidate. You're going to have 20 minutes with that candidate. That's going to be approximately 2 minutes for each question. Not going to really leave too much room for exaggerating onto an answer. So, I mean, it might be pretty cut and dry. Here's the question, answer it, and is it right or isn't it, in your opinion?
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds like some deep thinking going on there.
Well, I think after we go through this process this time, then if it were needed again, that we would probably have a little more idea of what appropriate protocol might be in order. But I feel like at this point we've probably gotten the best procedures that we can pull together, especially since we're doing it for the first time. I think staff has done an excellent job of helping us focus our attention on establishing the operating procedure that we've developed at this point.
I think we just move forward.
Okay. So moving forward to August the 22nd and 24th for the written portion, and then the oral exam portion for the qualifying agent exam. Are there any other matters that we need to discuss while we have everyone together?
I don't remember this, Director Vest. Did I tell you the times? The oral's going to start at 1 o'clock, the oral exam. Is it 11? Okay, we changed that. The oral exams are going to start at 11 o'clock.
Okay. What time are the written exams going to be taken?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. So they'll have from an hour to take the exam.
That's what that's the way I scheduled it, is for an hour for the written exam. Yes.
So they'll take the exam from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. You'll have from 10 o'clock and basically until 11 o'clock to score the exams and let them know whether they've passed that or not, and then schedule them in turn for the oral exam then.
Yes, sir. That's the way I see it.
That makes sense. That sounds like a good process.
Mm-hmm. And we're looking at how many so far now?
Right this minute, I have 12 people registered to take the test. Out of those 12, I have 7 fire, 7 Berg, 7 CCTV, and 1 monitoring.
Well, that shouldn't take us very long at all.
Again, registration does not close until Monday, so I may get a few more. I don't think it's going. I think we'll be able to manage it because we split it into 2 days.
Well, also you're going to have 4 examiners.
Yeah.
I don't see that being, but you'll have some of those candidates will be wanting to test in more than one category too.
Right. Out of the 12 applicants, several of them are in at least 3 classifications.
Sounds like to me you've got it set up where it should work in a reasonable fashion.
I don't have anything else, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do any of the board members have any other comments or questions before we adjourn? Okay.
One question. What time are we supposed to arrive on the 23rd? 22nd, I guess it is.
The first day of testing?
Yeah.
Well, your exam starts at, what did we say, 11? At least
11.
I would at least be here by 10:30.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, this meeting will be adjourned at 2 o'clock Central Standard Time.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.